This most extraordinary and frightful affair that transpired here in the heart of the city baffles the residents of the apartment building to no end. This most extraordinary and frightful affair that transpired here in the heart of the city baffles the residents of the apartment building to no end. This must be the food storage of the old town. This must be the television room. This mysterious man who seems to remain in secrecy under his now trademark hood rose to popularity, seemingly out of nowhere. This, of course, is all made up. You're just too embarrassed to admit that you don't have the faintest idea. This mysterious man who seems to remain in secrecy under his now trademark hood rose to popularity, seemingly out of nowhere. This, of course, is all made up. You're just too embarrassed to admit that you don't have the faintest idea. This only served Alomar's purpose, making him a martyr, and the pain he went through pushed him over the edge to his ascension to the true godhood. This person barely resembles a human anymore, despite that most likely being his original form, at least based on his anatomy. This person has severe burns and malformations around her body, especially on the face. She has been peeling off some of her depraved skin, and there are claw marks all over her body, most likely caused by herself. This person has severe burns and malformations around his body, especially on his face. He has been peeling off some of his depraved skin, and there are claw marks all over his body, most likely caused by himself. This person has started to cocoon into something. There are severe scorchings around his body, and the growth has become thick shell, like crust in some parts. This pipe feel cold. This pipe feel hot. This place. This proved out to be a problem when tensions within Bremen borders were rising, with different factions rising to prominence around the country. This really is your make or break mission. There is a person back in the city relying on you to return with riches. You have heard rumors about this place, and you are sure that there are great treasures hidden somewhere in these ruins. This room is too open. It doesn't feel safe to rest here. This rotten city. It was the very thing our Kaiser strived to conquer since day one. This shelf is dedicated to modern drama. Many of the books center around people waiting for their loved ones to return from the battlefield. This suspicion created a drift between the fellowship. In the end, the 4 other members proceeded with the initial mission, trusting fate and glory that was just inches away from them. This thing is more of a machine than an organic being. Although parts of it look very human-like, you have no idea what the thing is. This thing is supposedly your father. This thing looks to be human for the most parts. The long neck mask part, however, doesn't budge. It is stuck by some unnatural means. This time you were convinced of it. This thing, whatever it was still alive and breathing. This trait already started showing itself at a very young age, as you were chosen to become a dark priest upon the birth of you and your twin sister. This was half the job already. Now you only needed to convince the rest of the world of this forbidden information. This was only the beginning. Ricardo had plenty of dirty work for you to do, and at this point he had plenty of leverage too. Your sister being the last resort every time you hesitated. Those fools. The people around you waged wars over ancient disputes and grudges started by long-gone ancestors. Those who would set their foot inside would end up in a forever going turmoil of godly dimensions and planes of afterlife, thus creating a shared paradise, a shared consensus. Time is running out. I need the book to deal with the company. You decide to arm yourself once you found the remains of what was once the armory of the dungeons. To finish the ritual, I need time. The laundry room works as a perfect hiding place for the sacrificed. To perform any rites on a ritual circle, the founding circle must be carved first, to push back all the misery and horrors you drifted from one place to another, never growing roots to any specific place, always on the run so you wouldn't have to confront the past. To teach Willem a lesson, Turkilo kept pushing Willem deeper to the forest with his freakish man-beetle strength. To your surprise, the ghoul kept on advancing towards you as if nothing had happened. You had never faced a living dead before, and it seemed like traditional means of harm had very little impact on someone who felt no fear or pain. To your surprise, this did little to slow the creature down. After gasping for air for a second, it got right back on its feet and resumed pursuing you, blood running down in stretched mouth. Today's special is pork chops and murky brown sauce, served with asparagus. To your surprise, pursuing you, blood running down in stretched mouth. Today's special is pork chops and murky brown sauce, served with asparagus. Too bad it is useless because of the lack of electricity. Too bad the findings were only run-of-the-mill artifacts, pieces of broken vases and other trinkets of no use. Too late. I saw the dream. Top or bottom bunk. Traditionally, such rituals were used for protection. Al-Omer would look after the immediate surroundings for as long as the blood was running down the cross. Training to become a squire was a harsh school that spared no one, no matter if you were from a noble origin or not. Trials of cruelty and betrayal. Only the one who is last found standing will be worthy. Turkilo scolded Willem from wandering off. When Willem tried to explain what had happened, that only aggravated the beetle man even more. Turkilo yelled from above that this is the nature of men, that just like those song thrush chicks from earlier, this would be Willem's future once he grew up to become an adult. Turkilo. The beetleman had an urgent mission for Willem. You see, the ancient Turkilo yelled for Turkilo. The beetleman had an urgent mission for Willem. You see, the ancient kingdom Turkilo came from was under a serious threat, and Willem was the only boy who could help. Turkilo's lantern got more distant until Willem couldn't see it no more. Twice the size, in fact. Two brothers who established twice the size, in fact. Two brothers. Turkilo's lantern couldn't see it no more. Twice the size, in fact. Two brothers who established a fishing route on a particularly dangerous waters finally pushed their luck too far and were caught in a massive whirlwind. Ultimately, you did learn short circuit. Ultimately, your fate will be chosen by the higher powers. Under one sun, people finally joined together in the promised land. Unfortunate for you, you were born with a fragile body and your sister easily overpowered you and had her dagger on your neck waiting for the final blow. Unfortunately, a foreigner like yourself stood out in the protest and soon you had army officers at your doorway. With great force they pushed you on the ground, which knocked you out immediately. Unfortunately, Abella has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Abella has no arms left to soar. Unfortunately, Abella has no legs left to soar. Unfortunately, Black Caliph has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Black Caliph has no paws left to soar. Unfortunately, Dan has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Dan has no arms left to soar. Unfortunately, Dan has no legs left to soar. Unfortunately, Ghoul has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Ghoul has no arms left to soar. Unfortunately, Ghoul has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Karen has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Karen has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Karen has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Levi has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Levi has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Levi has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Marco has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Marco has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Marco has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Marina has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Marina has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Marina has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Marriage has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Marriage has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Olivia has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Olivia has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Olivia has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, Osar has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Osar has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Osar has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, the mission had its toll on you as well. Your psyche couldn't handle all the losses on the battlefield, so you had to take opioids to ease the pain. You formed an addiction. Unfortunately, the relics you brought from you formed an addiction. Unfortunately, the relics you brought from the trip tainted you, and you formed a panophobia, a fear of you, and you formed a trip tainted you brought from the trip tainted you, and you formed a panophobia, a fear of everything. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Abella's legs, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Abella's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Abella's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Black Caliph's hoofs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Don's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Don's other arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Ghoul's arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Ghoul's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Abella's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Ghoul's arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Ghoul's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Karen's legs, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Karen's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Levi's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Levi's other arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marco's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marco's other arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marina's legs, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marina's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marriage's arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marriage's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Marriage's other arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Olivia's legs, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Olivia's other arm, and she cannot do it herself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Osar's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Osar's other arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Villager's arm, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, there is no one to saw off Villager's legs, and he cannot do it himself. Unfortunately, There is no room for ghouls in your party. Unfortunately, Villager has got a sigil already. Unfortunately, Villager has no arms left to saw. Unfortunately, Villager has no legs left to saw. Unfortunately, you do not have enough silver. Unfortunately, you do not have rooms for one more goat in your party. Unfortunately, you do not have the means to decrypt this at the moment. Unfortunately, you don't have anything to write with. Unfortunately, you don't have arms to perform such act. Unfortunately, you had no natural knack for the subject and had to force yourself to concentrate. Unfortunately, you have nothing to smoke with the pipe. Unfortunately, your reproductive organs fail to work in your current form. Unlike many of the other older gods, Rare's part in the greater scheme of things remains a mystery. Unlike the warring kings and sultans of the time, Alomer's ideal world united people of all different religions and theologies under one umbrella. Upon a closer inspection, you noticed that the chest's lock was busted. Opening the chest confirmed your suspicions. The place had been looted long before you ever entered these old ruins. Upon closer inspection, you noticed that these figures were medieval Iron Maidens, human-shaped torture devices that had seen practical use judging from the old stains that had formed from the seeping blood of their victims. Upon closer inspection, the armor on the creature looks organic. It is exoskeleton-like growth. It is very hard and sturdy. Upon further investigation, you found out that Prehevel was a medium-sized city in the country of Bohemia. That is the last known location of your sister, and that is where you decided to head without delay. Upon further investigation, you noticed that the washing machine hole turns into a tunnel. You can see faint light out there in a short distance. Upon searching through Baron's documents, you noticed a certain place mentioned frequently time and time again. A town called Prehevel in the country of Bohemia. Upon turning and shaking the lamp, a soul stone rolled out. Upon your return, you witnessed your home burning, your family slain, and the artifact stolen. Those who survived the raid described the army and it as captain. Use quick key to get on and off of your wheelchair. Directional key. Use directional keys. Use quick key to get on and off of your wheelchair. Use directional keys and decision key to operate the clock. Use directional keys to assemble cubes. Use directional keys to struggle. Use a lesser soul to get agility +1. Use a lesser soul to get attack +1. Use a lesser soul to get defense +1. Use a lesser soul to get M attack +1. Use a lesser soul to get M defense +1. Use a lesser soul to get mind capacity +25. Use a lesser soul to get resurrection. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill adrenaline rush. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill advanced botanism. Use a lesser soul to get resurrection. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill adrenaline rush. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill advanced botanism. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill advanced occultism. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill analyze. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill bare-fisted proficiency. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill black orb. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill black smog. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill blood golem. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill blood sacrifice. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill blood sword. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill bloodlust. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill bob and weave. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill brain flower. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill bribe. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill bury the trauma. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill chains of torment. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill combustion. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill counter stance. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill counter magic. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill counter magic. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill dash. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill devour. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill diagnosis. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Diplomacy. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Guard. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Engrave. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Escape Plan. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Executioner. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Explosives. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Fast Dance. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Flesh Puppetry. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Golden Gates. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Greater Blood Magic. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Greater Meditation. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Greater Occultism. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Greater Photosynthesis. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Gun Proficiency. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Gunslinger. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Healing Whispers. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Heartflower. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Hurting. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Intimidate. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Inverse Crown of Thorns. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Killing Intent. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill La Danse Macabre. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Lockpicking. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Longinus. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Loving Whispers. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Lunar Meteorite. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Lunar Storm. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Magna Medicinal. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Magna Medicinal. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Marksmanship. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Master Chef. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Mastery over Vermin. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Masturbation. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Medicinal and Organ Harvest. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Meditation. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Melee Proficiency. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Mind Read. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Mischief of Rats. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Moth Swarm. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Necromancy. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Order Charge. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Perfect Guard. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Persuade. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Pheromones. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Photosynthesis. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Poison Tip. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Precision Stance. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Poison Tip. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Precision Stance. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Premonitions. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Pyromancy Trick. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Red Arc. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Reveal Aura. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Roots That Reap. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Rot. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Scorched Earth. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Short Circuit. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Sishu. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Slow Metabolism. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Spice Forge. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Spontaneous Combustion. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Steel. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Toxicology. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Trapraft. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Trapraft. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Undergrowth Awareness. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Warcry. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Warding Sigil. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Weaponcraft. Use a lesser soul to learn the skill Wrench Toss. Use a match to light the bonfire. Use a match to light the candle. Use 1 or 2 points to boost your strength, or 3 to add an additional attack to your string. Use Skinning Knife with precise movements to tear up the skin from muscles and bones. Use the elevator. Use the lighter to light the bonfire. Use the lighter to light the candle. Various cleaning products fill the shelf. Various different vials and bottles are stored here. They all seem grimy and useless to you. Various vegetables in various states of rot. Nothing looks edible. Vengeful in how you had been treated. You set the temple on fire, jammed the exit door so no one could escape, and then ran away. Only muffled screams could be heard coming from the temple. Very much like the sun, the moon is one of the primordial entities, and thus it has lore and beliefs written since the dawn of time. Vials and bottles that seem to contain detergent and washing agent. They are no use for you. Vial, toof, cough. Vial doesn't seem Vial, toof. Cough. Vile doesn't seem intimidated with your threats. Vile is losing his cool. Vile doesn't seem intimidated with your threats. Vile is losing his cool because of your lack of understanding. Vile isn't interested in talking to you any longer. Vile no more talking. Only the vile survive. Vile only. The vile, viler. Take me. Villager cannot hold weapons without arms. Villager cannot learn the skill. Villager does not mind this fate. He was resurrected to serve you. You're just fulfilling his destiny. Villager has got an oddly pleased expression on his face. His disturbed smile gives you the creeps. Villager does not mind fulfilling his destiny. Villager has got an oddly pleased expression on his face. His disturbed villager has lost both legs and arms, and is useless now. Villager has taken too much damage. It is struggling to contain his soul. Villager is grabbed by the bony grasp of the appendage. Villager is nervously looking around. Does he actually understand what is happening? Ghouls should not have that level of intelligence. Villager is sitting here and waiting for your orders. Villager is standing here and waiting for your orders. Villager is staring at his reflection on the television. Something about it amuses him. Villager looks very tense and stiff. Seems like he cannot have a moment's rest as he is waiting for your next orders. Villager nod in agreement. He is ready to die for you. Villager seems blissfully ignorant about the pain and suffering it has gone through. Villager sits down and stares at the bottomless depths of the dark television screen. Villager sits down to wait your orders. Villager takes a place to wait your orders. Villager tilts his head sideways and tries to make sense of the television screen. Villager tilts his head sideways as you try to communicate with him. Vinushka and the representation of humanity, Alma the Ascended One, are considered equal. Neither of the two stands taller. Violently, Vinushka and the representation of humanity, Alma the Ascended One, are considered equal. Neither of the two stands taller. Violently, the creature tried reach for you while making low grunt noises from his swollen throat. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper and deeper. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper and deeper as Levi tries to vomit. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper and deeper as Levi tries to vomit. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper and deeper as Marina tries to vomit. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper and deeper as Marina tries to vomit. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down the throat. Cold tendrils can be felt squirming deeper. Violently, the thing thrusts its tentacles down your throat. You feel the cold tendrils squirm deeper and deeper as you try to vomit. Vitruvia, being the master architect, did just that. Sylvian fell in love with the results. She went on and created the mankind according to Vitruvia's drawings. Walking back and forth the bridge didn't feel like such a good idea. If anything, the bridge felt even shakier than before. Warm. Was it a mistake jumping down here? Was it all just a dream? Was it all just waste of time? Was that your sister? watch television. We are just sacrificial lambs to them, waiting for slaughter. We have to move now. This is our only window of opportunity. Our sources say Kaiser is already on his way to Preheat. We have to move now. This is our only window of opportunity. Our sources say Kaiser is already on his way to Prehevel. I'm not sure if the project is far enough, but we must hijack it ASAP. We might not reach the paradise today. Not in 10 years. Maybe not even in our lifetime. Well, that solved nothing. All this, and you were still none the wiser. What backwater parts these dark corners of the earth really are. What do you think happens if a monkey is given the power of a higher being? All it knows is to rape and devour everything on its path, just to survive. What do you want to ask? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Abella? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Black Caliph? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Don? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Karen? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Levi? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Marco? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Marina? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Olivia? What do you want to sacrifice to resurrect Osar? What do you want to saw off from Abella? What do you want to saw off from Black Caliph? What do you want to saw off from Don? What do you want to saw off from Ghoul? What do you want to saw off from Karen? What do you want to saw off from Levi? What do you want to saw off from Marco? What do you want to saw off from Marina? What do you want to saw off from Marriage? What do you want to saw off from Olivia? What do you want to saw off from Osar? What do you want to saw off from Villager? What do you want to smoke? What do you want to saw off from Villager? What do you want to smoke? What followed was an intense period during which you tried many different medical treatments, all for nothing. There was no escaping the wheelchair. Your legs did have some minor function, but they were left far too weak to carry your weight properly. What had led you to the ruins was feverishly calling for you beneath the rocks and rubble. You dug the piles with your bare hands. What had your sister gotten herself? What had piles with your bare hands? What had your sister gotten herself into? A terrorist organization. The news really bothered you. You had definitely heard of the nameless Liberty Underground before. But where? What is going on with this bed? What is Venushka's is for the men to reap, just as the nature reaps are old and weary. What looked like small ruins from the ground level turned out to hide multiple levels of macabre secrets. You passed through old torture chambers, prisons suspended above bottomless chasms, huge underground caverns. What mumbo-jumbo. That might work for the priest and all, but what looked like small ruins from the ground level turned out to hide multiple levels of macabre secrets. You passed through old torture chambers, prisons suspended above bottomless chasms, huge underground caverns. What mumbo-jumbo. That might work for the priest and all, but he is not the one doing these renovations under a strict schedule. What one needs to understand is that the destruction is of pure kind. It does not target one man specifically. It just exists. What organ would you like to harvest? Whatever is the case, it is clear that the creature has none of the positive trait of either species, whatever that meant. Whatever the case, you and Dahlia traveled to Jataya, the capital of the Eastern Sanctuaries, recently named Eastern Union after they joined forces with the Veronian Republic. Whatever the price, the opportunity was whatever the case after they joined forces with the Veronian Republic. Whatever the price, the opportunity was too interesting to pass. With mixed feelings, you continued onwards. Whatever was inside this chest burned with the scorched earth. Whatever was the source of these voices, it obviously didn't want you to go this way. What is this? There is something buried under the dirt. What is this? When beginning your self-studies, you first had to choose the god you dedicate your time to. When I heard about this assignment, I figured the city of Prehevel was at least decent-sized, and there would surely be some entertainment to be had with the local dancers and street girls. When Kaiser occupied Prehevel, the capital of Bohemia, only to shortly after make a truce with the Eastern Union, That is when your alarm bells started to ring loud. When the Second Great War started. When your alarm bells started to ring loud. When the Second Great War started, the Eastern Union recruited every able-bodied person, no matter the age, to fight for the motherland. When you enter the second hall, you know those statues. They are pointing one to another. Just follow their lead. The last one points at the spot near the wall. I'll leave the box under the floor tiling there. Where do you want to travel? Whether it was a good idea remains to be seen. Which floor do you want to go? Whether it was a good idea remains to be seen. Which floor do you want to go? Which god do you pray? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Abella? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Black Caliph? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Dine? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Ghoul? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Karen? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Levi? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Marco? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Marina? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Olivia? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Osar? Which sigil would you like to engrave on Villager? Which weapon do you want to curse? You have lesser souls. While occupying yourself with the world of botanism, your sister would often quietly join your reading sessions, burying herself into her own books. While the two talked, the more ugly-faced blindworm had bested the other. Hungry for more devastation, the thing set its eyes on Willem. While you were busy in the ring, your sister had grown into a beautiful young woman who attracted all kinds of admirers. It would have meant trouble if it wasn't for your mean reputation. Who did you choose? Who of us doesn't cover their true face and hide behind a persona? Who will get agility +1? Who will get attack +1? Who will get defense +1? Who will get M attack +1? Who will get M defense +1? Who will get mind capacity +25? Who will get resurrection? Who will learn adrenaline rush? Who will learn advanced occultism? Who will learn analyze? Who will learn bare-fisted proficiency? Who will learn black orb? Who will learn Who will learn analyze? Who will learn advanced? Who will learn adrenaline rush? Who will learn advanced occultism? Who will learn analyze? Who will learn bare fist? Who will learn black orb? Who will learn black smog? Who will learn blood golem? Who will learn blood sword? Who will learn bloodlust? Who will learn bob and weave? Who will learn bury the trauma? Who will learn chains of torment? Who will learn combustion? Who will learn counter stance? Who will learn fast stance? Who will learn flesh puppetry? Who will learn greater meditation? Who will learn greater occultism? Who will learn greater photosynthesis? Who will learn gun proficiency? Who will learn healing whispers? Who will learn hurting? Who will learn la danse macabre? Who will learn longinus? Who will learn loving whispers? Who will learn lunar meteorite? Who will learn lunar storm? Who will learn master chef? Who will learn meditation? Who will learn melee proficiency? Who will learn mischief of rats? Who will learn moth swarm? Who will learn necromancy? Who will learn order, charge? Who will learn perfect guard? Who will learn pheromones? Who will learn photosynthesis? Who will learn poison tip? Who will learn precision stance? Who will learn pyromancy trick? Who will learn red arc? Who will learn roots that reap? Who will learn rot? Who will learn scorched earth? Who will learn Sishu? Who will learn slow metabolism? Who will learn steel? Who will learn war cry? Who will learn wrench toss? Who will smoke the tobacco? Who will smoke the wild dagger? Who will you sacrifice? Who would believe all your tries? Who will you sacrifice? Who would believe all your tries? To blacken my name, dead crow as a prize. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now, I ask? I've found the safest place in this rotten town. Who's the stupid one now? Oh, why were they hidden here? Willem did not like how the stare felt. Oh, why were they hidden here? Willem did not like how the stare felt. Oh, why were they hidden here? Willem, oh, why were they hidden here? Willem did not like how the stare felt. Panicked and ran to the opposite direction. Willem ran to a nearby thicket in hopes that the blindworm couldn't fit in there. Instead, the beast thrust itself past broken branches with ferocious force. Willem slid down a muddy hill and found himself on a large opening in the forest. In the middle of that opening, two giant baby-faced blindworms were caught in a wrestling match. Willem tried to beg for a tasty worm from the bird mother, but competition was fierce. Those chicks knew that to succeed in life, you have to push the competition over nest boundaries. Willem tried to struggle, but ultimately fell off the nest. Just as he was about to meet his maker, Turkilo scooped by him and grabbed Willem with his cold man beetle arms. Willem was a bit hesitant, but Turkilo was already forcing the boy out from his bedroom window out to the rain. Turkilo was already forcing the boy, but Turk was a bit hesitant. But Turkilo was already forcing the boy out from his bedroom window out to the rain. "We got no time for thinking," said Turkilo. Willem, the most mischievous child known in the town, stared at the raindrops behind his window screen, just longing for an adventure. Willem, the restless boy he was, disregarded the warnings and slipped out without a worry in the world. Willem, the wildest child known to the little town of Merwood, spent another afternoon watching raindrops dance against the window. Willem's mother would go inside to get a little parcel with decorated wrappings. Winters grew colder and summers shorter, which resulted a great hunger in the north. The fine men of the older guard set sails to the unknown west in a desperate attempt to find food and riches to feed the people. With a firm grip, you cock the gun and switch the safety on and off. You remember his teachings. Winters grew colder, and the fine men of the older guard set sails to the unknown west in a desperate attempt to find food and riches to feed the people. With a firm grip, you cock the gun and switch the safety on and off. You remember his teachings. He told you how to wield this thing. With a firm grip, you cock the rifle and check its iron sights. You remember his teachings. He told you how to wield this thing. With a real adventure ahead of you. How did you prepare for the trip? With enough pieces of leather, you can use them to make an outfit, a disguise of sorts. With some effort, you are able to chip away some of the black matter with you. With the act, your affinity with the Grogoroth is growing. With the act, your affinity with the Alamur is growing. With the act, your affinity with the Sylvian is growing. With the act, your affinity with the Sylvian is growing. With the aid of your new slaves, you eventually grew strong enough to climb up the well. You creeped upstairs to the temple and noticed it was nighttime. With the sacrifice, your affinity with the Grogor, with the aid of temple, and noticed it was nighttime. With the sacrifice, your affinity with the Grogoroth is growing. With the sacrifice, your affinity with the Grogoroth is growing. With this little information about the task at hand, how did you prepare for the trip? With this little information about the task at hand, how did you prepare for the trip? With this long trip ahead of you, with this little information about did you prepare for the trip? With this long trip, with this little information, you prepare for the trip? With this long trip ahead of you, how did you prepare for the trip? With time, you learned to understand the language they spoke. You learned mastery over insects. With you, confessions. Your affinity with the Alamur is growing. With your dedication, your affinity with the Alel Myrrh is growing. With your mother gone and your father drinking in the gutter, you were taken to the pre-heval orphanage. Without a warning, the soldier takes a point-blank shot at you. Without noticing it, you had been pulled into the criminal world. What started as helping out a friend became a more frequent occurrence. Won't you die? Words about the death of an older god especially are nothing short of absurd. Would the answers even matter anymore? If the Baron von Dutch had dirtied his hands with blood, then you had reveled in bloodbath in comparison to get where you are now. Written in blood. Arm yourself. The Festival of Termina. The Festival of Blood is upon us. Yellow sign, oil sign. Highly flammable blue southern flamanita. Antidote for the poison golden chanterelle. Golden chanterelle. Nutritious liquid. Yellow mages differed from your typical priests. Instead of dedicating their lives to worship, gods existed for them. Their force was to be harnessed to further one's own personal growth and agenda. Yes, we are up to date with modern times now with the electric lock and all. But stop bashing the panel. It won't open with brute force, you idiots. Yes, we are up to date with modern times now with the electric lock and all. But stop bashing the panel. It won't open with brute force, you idiots. You win. You absorbed the blank soul. You absorbed the caressing soul. You absorbed the changeling soul. You absorbed the chaotic soul. You absorbed the decrepit soul. You absorbed the endless soul. You absorbed the enlightened soul. You absorbed the latent soul. You absorbed the radiating soul. You absorbed the shadowed soul. You absorbed the solitary soul. You absorbed the suffocating. You absorbed the solitary soul. You absorbed the suffocated soul. You absorbed the tainted soul. You absorbed the tormented soul. Your affliction with the said god grew greatly. You again declined, but your sister insisted that you'd at least try it out. You agreed. You agreed and moved into his huge manor. The first one to welcome you was the daughter of the Baron, Elise von Dutch. Something inside you changed that very moment as the two of you locked eyes. You already took the herb from here. You also get an itch in your groin area. You also hear the sound of local residents. Even while all comprehension would dictate that this place is long abandoned, you also started to feel the spirit of your sister as years went on. She was accompanying you everywhere you went. You also take your rust-colored pearl back. You and your twin sister were born at the strike of midnight, at the turning point of months. Thus you were born with different birth signs. You are able to pacify the giant. Just a little bit. You are able to push through the trees and bushes. Thanks to your undergrowth awareness, you are able to push through the trees and bushes. You are ashamed to admit it, but you feel the most at home in this attire. You are at the same time both terrified and tempted to touch the intricate ornaments of the ancient stone slab door. You are certain that you've never even visited this city before. So how can there be footage of you commentating a murder? You are feeling horrible. Your body aches like never before. You are free. You are grabbed by the bony grasp of the appendage. You are not a fan of the historical comedy genre this book falls into. You are not able to convince him with your words. You are not entirely sure what has caused this man to grow this huge. He is humongous in every sense of the word, except for his groin area. His muscles are almost bursting out from the torso. You are not entirely sure what plant this is. Is it poisonous or not? Maybe it is better to leave it be. You are not entirely sure whether this thing was originally a human that has mutated to resemble a rat, or if it once was a rat that has mutated closer to human. You are not going to sleep in the presence of these remains and gore. You are not going to sleep in the same bed with the corpse of this monster. You are not sure if Pakekel is talking about prize or price here. You are not sure if this feeling is that of enlightenment or that of total terror. You are not sure whether he recognizes you or not. You are now wielding power to take away life. You are pleased to notice that the herbal taste of the Angostura only hints with its presence afterwards. never trying to rival the key ingredients. You are shocked and paralyzed, of fear or confusion. No one knows. You are unable to move. You ask, but the obelisk gives no answers. You backed away from the room, yet the ghoul kept on following you. You cautiously hopped over the collapsed floor in the corridor leading up to the library. The creature was not as agile, and instead face planted on the ground as it tripped on the rubble. You barely got out of the corridor as the malformed beast charged at you with full force. You got violently tackled against the wall and lost consciousness. You became a part of the perfect flesh. You became a permanent part of the sleeping house. You both were tremendously relieved. You had finally moved out of your parents' sphere of influence. You braced yourself for whatever was to come. You figured that a trained mage like yourself doesn't need to hide from dangers. You braved across it. The bridge felt like it was about to collapse at any moment, but somehow it remained together. The other side of the ravine was more or less identical to the one where you just came. You can confirm a spirit presence using the talking board. Asking a simple opening question like, "Is anyone out there?" or "Can you hear me?" opens up a connection between you two. You can feel the tension rising between you. Can confirm a spirit presence using the talking board. Asking a simple opening question like, "Is anyone out there?" or "Can you hear me?" opens up a connection between you two. You can feel the tension rising between these two people. You can feel this realization in your guts. What if you can't get back up? You can hear a hint of sarcasm in his voice. You can notice Marco's stone face change, ever so slightly because of the sight. You can only see dusty interior inside. It doesn't seem like a place that has seen much life and excitement recently. You can only see white noise. You can only tell there was a large amount of vodka in the drink from the slight fuzz in your head as you finish the drink. You can peek to the alleyway, but you cannot fit through. You can see a faint sign of hesitation in Vile's eyes. He doesn't stop on his heels entirely, but he seems to be questioning his next move. You can see a misty forest from the tainted window. You can see City of Fahevil hidden behind the thick mist. You can see scorched skin under the mask. The eyes are glassy and dry. The whole frame looks weakened, almost as if these people have been standing here for an eternity. You can see scorched skin under the mask. The eyes are glassy and dry. The whole frame looks weakened, almost as if these people have. You can see the basement entrance. You can see scorched, almost as if these people have been standing here for an eternity. You can see scorched skin under the mask. The eyes are glassy and dry. The whole frame looks weakened, almost as if these people have. You can see the basement entrance from the window. Looks like the mist is creeping inside the house. You can see the bottom of pretty easily. The well has dried up. You can see the bottom of the well pretty well. The well has dried up. You can see the dim light fading in Skeleton's eye sockets. Skeleton is at the end of its road. You can see the silhouette of your reflection in the blood. It distorts beyond recognition. You can see your vague reflection on the dark screen. You cannot contain your fear. You cannot distinguish any expressions from the face of the tormented one. You cannot hear or see anything down there. You cannot hear or see anything that is down there. You cannot make sense. What is a head and what is just another beehive? You cannot penetrate the head to plant the seed. The surface of the head is too tough. You cannot penetrate the head to plant your seed. The head is too hard. You cannot penetrate the thick skull of the beast to lay down your seed. You cannot quite explain why, but the small statuette feels to hold great importance. You can't eat machinery. You can't hear anything moving in the darkness, though. You can't help but let your mind wander. You reminisce what has led you to this point in life. You can't make any sense of Ratkin's speech. You can't make any sense of Ratkin's speech. You can't make sense of the writing. It doesn't look like any known language to you. You can't move the torso to a proper position to harvest any organs. The beast is too heavy. You can't quite put a finger on what it is. Their anatomy is just from an uncanny valley, if that makes sense. You can't really explain why this is. You can't remember much else. The moon god in general is shrouded in great mystery, and his ways are often left unexplained. You can't remember what happened, but from one point onwards it was just you and your sister against the world. You can't see inside. You can't seem to be able to read her mind for some reason. You can't seem to get a good grip from the wall. You can't seem to get a grip from anywhere. You can't seem to pierce the skin of the creature. And upon further investigation, you notice the monstrosity is still breathing. You can't seem to pierce the skin of the creature. You carefully lift up Pav on his feet. You carefully lift up the Bremen lieutenant on his feet. You cautiously walked up to the bridge. You cautiously walked up. You carefully lift up the Bremen lieutenant on his feet. You cautiously walked up to the bridge. Just putting some weight on the thing caused a couple of nuts and bolts fall down to the endless depths. You change your outfit back to the working overalls. You charge to the unknown darkness without a second thought. You check if the gun functions well. It does. You remember how as a child seeing a firearm created excitement and sense of respect in you. But now these things have become mundane. You check if the rifle functions well. It does. You remember how as a child seeing a firearm created excitement and sense of respect in you. But now these things have become mundane. You check the bookshelf for anything interesting. You check the bookshelves for anything interesting. You check the functionality of the rifle without even thinking about it. Your old habits are kicking in. The rifle creates a familiar feeling of safety. You check the functionality of the rifle without even thinking about it. Your old habits are kicking in. The rifle creates a familiar feeling of safety. You check the functionality of the rifle without even thinking about it. Your old habits are kicking in. The rifle creates a familiar feeling of safety. You check the functionality of the trench gun without even thinking about it. Your old habits are kicking in. The gun creates a familiar feeling of safety. You check the functionality of the trench gun without even thinking about it. Your old habits are kicking in. The gun creates a familiar feeling of safety. You check the pockets of the skeleton. You checked all the pockets, but found nothing of value. You checked the room for any good spots to hide in and decided to crouch behind a bookshelf. The place gave you a good vantage point while hiding you in the shadows. You climbed down the claustrophobic, bloody pit. The pit opened up and the area that revealed itself was even more open than the ravine upstairs. There was a huge cavern beneath the fortress ruins. You climbed in. You completely forgot them here, because the orphanage found out about your misbehaving and locked you up for several weeks as a punishment. You confirmed the suspicions of this beheaded oddity. You continued to search the dungeons one room at a time. Most valuables had been looted over time, but behind a collapsed tunnel, you managed to find an old bookshelf with a set of books that caught your interest. You continued with your winning streak. The hype around you was growing. Slowly, even you started to believe the hype. You copied the locations mentioned on the note to your map. You copied the markings to your map. You could break the glass and take it, but the vitrine appears to be triggered with an alarm system of some kind. You could climb up the tree if you wanted to. You could devour the remains of the dead hound. You could have sworn it sounded like something heavy and alive was slowly moving towards the door. You had heard rumors of this place, and you definitely didn't want to confirm whether there was any truth to those horror stories or not. You backed away from the door. You could have used the contraption yourself too. If you had some rope with you, you could jump down from here. You could sleep here forever. Just forget the outside world and stay in bed. You could unlock the gate from this side. You could unlock the gates from this side. You could use a small key here. You could use demon seed on the cave wolf. You could use lockpicking here. You could use purifying talisman here. You could use soulstone here. You could use the church keys here. You could use the headmaster's key here. You could use the mana key here. You could use the master key here. You could use the sewer keys here. You could use the skill masturbation here. You could use the small key here. You could use white key here. You couldn't find your sister anywhere. Calling her telephone. Nothing. You couldn't help but take a few steps back. You couldn't find your sister anywhere. Calling her telephone. Nothing. You couldn't help but take a few steps back. You couldn't find one. Nothing. You couldn't help but take a few steps back. That strong was the killing intent emanating from the thing. You couldn't sleep after what you had witnessed in Preheval. You knew too much about the universe and what horrors it hid in the darkness of the night. You couldn't stand up for this any longer and became a deserter. The Eastern Union wouldn't forgive such crimes, so you had to pack up wisely for your escape. You couldn't wait to get out of there as soon as possible. Unfortunately, your wishes were answered sooner than you could have guessed. You could have sworn you were wearing something different. You dance with Skeleton for a minute or two. You decide to keep your distance and backed away. You decide to navigate towards it. You decided to concentrate on your own doings instead of giving in to the jealousy, and it quickly bared fruit. You decided to leave them both for now. You decided to not give your sister the satisfaction of being the book smarts of the family. You snagged her books and tried to catch up to her level. You decided to play along. You were sure that this terror of the modern man was perfectly aware of your reasoning too. That was the common relationship between a master yellow mage and their apprentice after all. You decided to play along. You were sure that this terror of the modern man was perfectly aware of your reasoning too. That was the typical relationship between a master yellow mage and their apprentice after all. You decided to return to the foyer. While walking there, you carefully tried to listen for any other possible residents of these dungeons. You decided to stock up before your travels. You decided to take the first train towards Preheval and find out what was going on. You decided to turn back before getting lost in the darkness. You descended down to the dark depths. The echo inside your head returned once again. Misguided soul, can't you hear my call? The words were clear this time around. You devoured the remains. The scope part of the creature is too hard for you to chew though. You devoured the remains. You didn't even have time to lift your weapon as the mauling arm crushed you against the floor. You didn't even stop when the man hit the ground. The referee had to pull you away with all he got before you stopped. You didn't have any burden left from your old life. It was a bittersweet feeling. Your ties to your family and past were severed thanks to the traumatic events that transpired in Preheval. You didn't have any natural talent as a pickpocket per se, and the underworld of Rondon was very rough on you. You didn't have time to even start chanting the spell as the mauling arm crushed you against the floor. You didn't know what to do. Soon you found yourself in the ring with the ex-family member and the bell rang. He was a tough opponent, but you managed to get the best of him. You were able to counter one of his attacks with a knockout hit. You didn't notice the gaping hole at the center of the chamber until you got closer, and your torch lit up the surroundings. The wooden contraption had been built around it as a freight elevator of sorts, lifting and lowering items and people, if necessary. You didn't really feel the change until you finally dropped the weights, and noticed how light and lightning fast your movements were without the additional baggage. Your agility leveled up at least twice during all that. You died because of your infected wound. You disable the necromancy and say your farewells to Ghoul. Ghoul doesn't seem to understand what is going on. You disable the necromancy and say your farewells to Skeleton. Skeleton doesn't seem to understand what is going on. You do not have answers for this. You do not have enough sanity to perform this act. You do not have enough souls to curse the weapon. You do not see anyone on the other side. You dodged the initial swing and tried to counterattack immediately after. But unfortunate for you, the creature followed its attack by pecking you with its large beak. You don't feel like resting right now with the mystery man right next to you. You don't feel so lucky though. For whatever reason, you don't have anyone to make love to but yourself. You don't have anyone to sacrifice. You don't have enough contestant heads for the trade. You don't have enough pearls. You don't have enough sanity to perform this rite. You don't have enough shillings. There is no haggling here. You don't know whether you should feel angry or sad remembering your father. You don't know why, but it feels like the obelisk is staring at you constantly without blinking her eyes. You don't need to kill this one yet. You don't quite know what you are looking at. There is gore and all things, disgusting in bits and pieces. You don't quite understand what you are looking at. Looks like some kinds of information cables. You don't really have knowledge on what could cause such a dramatic metamorphosis. From the looks of it, the barrel is even functioning as a firearm of sorts. You don't see any laundry inside, though. Occasional thump sounds suggest that there are some objects inside. You don't see anything besides darkness inside. You drink the milk, it is. Well, it is just milk. It doesn't exactly inspire the poet inside you. You dug the rubble with your bare hands. You turned over wooden structures and pushed away a stone pillar. You ended up starting a street practitioner of medical care, where you'd heal people of all social classes. You entered a huge chamber full of partly buried skeletons and rotting corpses laying about. The ground had a thick layer of dried blood and filth which had accrued around the chamber walls over the years. You examined the engine, yet you find nothing wrong with it. You examine the pistol. It feels crazy to you that such a small apparatus can have such a big impact to the world. You examine the rifle. It feels crazy to you that such a simple apparatus can have such a big impact to the world. You examine the trench gun. It feels crazy to you that such a simple apparatus can have such a big impact to the world. You examined the bottom of the desk and found a hidden trapdoor. You excelled on the battlefield despite your age. However, you grew bitter as you saw younger and younger kids being recruited and killed as the war dragged on. You explained the location of the cafe. You explained the location of the restaurant. You explained the situation to her, and the two of you decide to meet up in the country of London. There was no possibility of you living in Vatican City anymore. You explained your situation to them, and they took you in their custody. Soon you were already on a plane flight headed back to Bremen. You feel a perspective shift in your surroundings, as if everything was to shrink, or perhaps you were to ascend higher. You feel a twist inside as you take the book from your satchel. You feel an injection needle on your neck. You feel an intense aura emanating from the figure in yellow. You are petrified in fear and awe. As this person lays its eyes on you, you feel as though a weight has been lifted from your shoulders. You feel closer to enlightenment. You feel dizzy being this close to the monolith. Your sight becomes blurry, and you can hear your blood rush in your veins. You feel energy flowing to the door through your fingertips. You feel euphoric. You feel great pressure inside you. Starting from the crotch area, you feel great urge to open the book. But at the same time, you feel like consequences might be terrible. You feel like someone was watching you while you slept. You feel like your journey has just began, as if your existence since this very moment has been like watching someone else entirely. You feel no change for spending time in the confessional. You feel nothing. You feel sadness. You feel strong killing intent through your sleep. You feel the eyes of the creature bury even deeper. Clearly its interests are in you now. You feel warm fluid pour inside your throat. The vile thing is injecting you with something. You felt a cold draft run across the chamber. The draft seemed to be guiding you towards the dark corridor at the end of the room. You felt helpless. There wasn't much you could do. The next time you heard of her was when you read news about a terrorist group called Nameless Liberty Underground breaking her free from prison. You find 10 shillings. You find 12 silver coins. You find 15 shillings and an old bottle of beer. You find 15 shillings. You find 2.303 ammo. You find 212 gauge shells. You find 29 millimeters bullets. You find 2 bolts. You find 2 bottles of vodka. You find 2 cloth fragments. You find 2 fly ammonites. You find 2 gunpowders. You find 2 light blue vials. You find 2 lucky coins. You find 2 opium powders. You find 2 pep pills. You find 2 shillings from the locker. You find 2 shillings. You find 2 white vials. You find 3.303 ammo. You find 312 gauge shells. You find 3 9mm bullets. You find 3 blue herbs and 2 small seeds. You find 3 bolts. You find 3 glass vials. You find 3 lavender petals. You find 3 matches and 10 shillings. You find 3 matches. You find 3 shillings from the locker. You find 3 shillings. You find 3 silver coins. You find 3 syringes of heroin. You find 49mm bullet. You find 49mm bullets. You find 4 shillings. You find 4 tinder boxes. You find 5.303 ammo. You find 5 9mm bullets. You find 5 shillings. You find 5 silver coins. You find 6 shillings. You find 6 silver coins. You find a .303 ammo. You find a 12 gauge shell. You find a 12 gauge trench gun. You find an anathomia. You find a arm guards. You find an anathomia. You find a arm guards. You find a bag of wheat flour. You find a ballistic shield and 2.303 ammo. You find a ballistic shield. You find a basement key from the pockets of the woodsman. You also take the axe. You find a bayonet. You find a bear trap. You find a betel stone. You find a black vial. You find a blue herb. You find a blue vial. You find a bolt cutters. You find a bolt. You find a blue herb. You find a blue vial. You find a bolt cutters. You find a bolt. You find a bone saw. You find a bone shears. You find a bone saw. You find a booby trap. You find a bone shears. You find a bone saw. You find a booby trap. You find a bottle of ale. You find a bottle of beer. You find a bottle of vodka from the locker. You find a bottle of vodka. You find a bottle of whiskey. You find a Bremen chestplate. You find a Bremen Elite helmet and a Bremen chestplate. You find a Bremen Elite helmet. You find a Bremen gas mask and arm guards. You find a Bremen gas mask. You find a broomstick. You find a carrot. You find a chak-chak. You find a chain tied to your ankle. You find a broomstick. You find a carrot. You find a chak-chak. You find a chain tied to your ankle. You find a chainmail dress. You find a chainmail hood. You find a chalk. You find a claymore. You find a cloth fragment. You find a cloth hood. You find a coded letter number 2. You find a combat manual. You find a cloth hood. You find a coded letter number 2. You find a combat manual and pre-heval map. You find a sea ration from the locker. You find a sea ration. You find a crosswords puzzle. You find a cursed iron mace. You find a cursed iron spear. You find a cursed shark teeth. You find a cursed short sword. You find a death mask. You find a dirty toilet paper. You find a dragoon helmet. You find a dried meat. You find a fencing gambeson. You find a fly, amanita. You find a gasoline canister from the top of the shelf. You find a gasoline canister. You find a glass vial. You find a goat hoof. You find a golden chanterelle. You find a green herb. You find a green vial. You find a gunpowders. You find a iron spear. You find a cassara. You find a knife. You find a leather armor. You find a leather helmet. You find a leechmonger ring. You find a light blue vial. You find a lighter. You find a long sword. You find a lucky coin from underneath the locker. You find a lucky coin from underneath the shelf. You find a lucky coin from underneath. You find a lucky coin from underneath the shelf. You find a lucky coin from underneath the table. You find a lucky coin. You find a Luger pistol. You find a makeshift armor. You find a meat mallet. You find a meat pea and a moldy bread. You find a meat pea. You find a moldy bread from the cupboard. You find a moldy bread. You find a monocle. You find a morning star. You find a one-wing necklace. You find a paprika. You find a penny bun. You find a pickle hobe. You find a piece of chalk. You find a piece of raw meat. You find a pigskin gas mask. You find a pine cone. You find a pipe bomb. You find a pipe wrench. You find a pipe. You find a plank shield. You find a plate helmet. You find a plate mail. You find a pressure plate. You find a purifying talisman. You find a purple vial. You find a quill. You find a red herb. You find a red vial. You find a rifle .303 MKI and 3.303 ammo. You find a rifle .303 MKI. You find a ring of the still blood. You find a ring of wraiths. You find a rust-colored pearl. You find a rusty. You find a ring of wraiths. You find a rust-colored pearl. You find a rusty key. You find a rusty pipe. You find a salmon snake rune. You find a saw blade. You find a scroll of the black arts. You find a severed. You find a salmon snake rune. You find a saw blade. You find a scroll of the black arts. You find a severed arm and leg. You find a sewer wench. You find a sharp teeth. You find a shilling from the cupboard. You find a short bow. You find a shotgun shell. You find a sickle. You find a small key. You find a small thing's amulet. You find a smelter key. You find a sorcerer's stone. You find a soul devour necklace. You find a soul stone. You find a stall helm. You find a stick. You find a syringe of heroin. You find a thorned ring. You find a throwing dart. You find a throwing knife. You find a tomato. You find a turnip. You find a vegetable pie. You find a vial of oil. You find a vial of red vial. You find a thorned ring. You find a throwing dart. You find a throwing knife. You find a tomato. You find a turnip. You find a vegetable pie. You find a vial of oil. You find a vial of red vial. You find a war scythe. You find a water vial. You find a white vial. You find a wine vial. You find a wooden buckler. You find a worm juice. You find alchemilia vol. 1. You find alchemilia vol. 2. You find alchemilia vol. 3. You find an ale. You find an artificial soul. You find an axe. You find an eagle crest shield. You find an egg. You find an elixir of mind. You find an empty scroll. You find an EP mask. You find an explosive vial. You find an eye of Sylvian. You find an gunpowder. You find an iron arrow. You find an gunpowder. You find an iron arrow. You find an iron cuirass. You find an iron mace. You find an iron spear. You find a meat cleaver. You find an officer's sword. You find an orange vial. You find an ornament lantern. You find an short sword. You find an orange vial. You find an ornament lantern. You find an short sword. You find an yellow vial. You find ancient book. You find arm guards. You find blood flower magic eye. You find bolt cutters. You find book of enlightenment. You find book of fears. You find book of the forgotten memories. You find brain diagram document among the papers. You find church keys and sewer keys. You find church keys. You find craftsman's notes inside. You find dirt. You find duct tape. You find eyeglasses. You find glass shards. You find goulash. You find gunpowder. You find headmaster's key under the gore. You find headmaster's key. You find lavender. You find leg guards. You find mushroom stew. You find natural doctrine. You find natural doctrine the second. You find Enlu reconnaissance report. You find natural doctrine. You find natural doctrine the second. You find Enlu reconnaissance report number 1 among the papers. You find Enlu reconnaissance report number 2. among the papers. You find nothing useful. You find nothing. You find occult grimoires. You find oil. You find nothing useful. You find nothing. You find occult grimoires. You find oil. You find pep pills from the locker. You find pep pills. You find poems of love and torment. You find raw meat. You find ring of wraiths. You find rotten meat. You find scrap metal. You find soldier's letter. You find scrap metal. You find soldier's letter and the eagle brass key. You find some nitroglycerin powder. You find some opium powder. You find some tobacco. You find studies of Al-Murai. You find studies of Grogoroth. You find studies of Sylvian I. You find telelectroscope and logic among the papers. You find the Alchemilia Vol. 2. You find the Alchemilia Vol. 3. You find the Alchemilia Vol. .1. You find the Anathomia. You find the Book of Enlightenment. You find the Book of Fears. You find the Combat Manual. You find the Anathomia. You find the Book of Fears. You find the Combat Manual. You find the Diary of a Madman. You find the Fellowship Cheech.1 original. You find the Fellowship Cheech.2 original. You find the Kaiser Critique. You find the Kaiser's Rise to Power. You find the Fellowship Cheech.1 original. You find the Fellowship Cheech.2 original. You find the Kaiser Critique. You find the Kaiser's Rise to Power. You find the Last Frontier Cheech.1. You find the Lion Brass Key. You find the Mahav. You find the Last Frontier Cheech.1. You find the Lion Brass Key. You find the Mahaver. You find the Man in Dreams flyer. You find the Mana Key. You find the new poems of love and torment. You find the newspaper article. You find the occult grimoires. You find the passages of Mahebre. You find the portrait of a young man. You find the pre-Hevel document. You find the recipes of the 15th century Vol. 1. You find the recipes of the 15th century Vol. .2. You find the scroll of Berserk. You find the scroll of fencing. You find the scroll of lock picking. You find the pre-Hevel document. You find the passages of Mahebre. You find the portrait. You find the Mana Key. You find the new poems of love and torment. You find the newspaper article. You find the occult grimoires. You find the passages of Mahebre. You find the portrait of a young man. You find the pre-Hevel document. You find the recipes of the 15th century Vol. 1. You find the recipes of the 15th century Vol. .2. You find the scroll of Berserk. You find the scroll of fencing. You find the scroll of lock picking. You find the scroll of marksmanship. You find the scroll of pyromancy trick. You find the scroll of the black arts. You find the scroll of the Church of Healing. You find the scroll of the Church of Sylvian. You find the scroll of the Dark Mage. You find the scroll of the General. You find the scroll of the Highwaymen. You find the scroll of the Leeches. You find the scroll of the Longsword. You find the scroll of the Swordsman. You find the scroll of the Wildman. You find the scroll of the Wizards. You find the scroll of thievery. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Al-Amur. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of God of Fear. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Grogor. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of God of Fear. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Grogoroth. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Rare. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Sylvian. You find the Skin Bible. Chapter of Vanushka. You find the Skin Bible. Vanushka. Unedited. You find the tale of the Pocket Cat Eye. You find the tale of the Pocket Cat 2. You find the 4-8. You find the tale of the Pocket Cat Eye. You find the tale of the Pocket Cat 2. You find the The 4 ages of modern history. You find that the tale of the pocket. You find the 4 ages of modern history. Pocket cat. You find the 4 ages of modern history. You find that the tale of the pocket cat cheese. 1. You find that the tale of the pocket cat cheese. 2. You find that the truth under the moonlight. You find tobacco. You find wheat flour from the cupboard. You find yourself in the middle of an encounter. You finish praying. You find that the truth under the moonlight. You find tobacco. You find wheat flour from the cupboard. You find yourself in the middle of an encounter. You finish praying. You finish the drink. You finish your dinner. It was surprisingly tasty. You finished your chant and focused all your hatred and fury on a concentrated spot on the ghoul's soft torso. Like a vortex, the energy tore the archaeologist's skin and rotten meat and left a gaping hole in their place. You found a small thing's amulet. You found a white key. You found escapism from the nature. And you found a white key. You found escapism from the nature and botanism. Your sister, also being academically gifted, took interest in sciences. She would dedicate her time to new sciences that centered around advanced engineering and top-of-the-line technology. You found old wheat flour that still seemed good. You found tobacco, a blue vial and prison keys after searching his pockets. You gained better understanding of yourself. The link between your mind and body has started its deterioration. You gained courage and confidence from that ordeal. With that newly found confidence, you set out on the most remote locations in the world to study their flora and fauna. You gasp as you take the rifle in your arms. The firearm feels heavy and sturdy. Slowly you graze its long barrel with your index finger. You gasp as you take the trench gun in your arms. The firearm feels heavy and sturdy. Slowly you graze its thick barrel with your index finger. You get 20 shillings and a lucky coin. You get 20 shillings, a lucky coin, and a gentleman's hat. You get 20 shillings, a lucky coin and Tanaka's notes. You get 20 shillings. You get 20 shillings, a lucky coin and Tanaka's notes. You get 20 shillings, a lucky coin, a gentleman's hat and broken eyeglasses. You get 3 cat. You get 20 shillings, a lucky coin, a gentleman's hat and broken eyeglasses. You get 3 catnips. You get 3 dried meat, a moldy bread and a cheese. You get 3 iron arrows and a bear trap. You get 3 shillings duct tape and a combat jacket. You get 3 catnips. You get 3 dried meat, a moldy bread and a cheese. You get 3 iron arrows and a bear trap. You get 3 shillings duct tape and a combat jacket. You get 30 silver coins. You get 4 12-gauge shells. You get 4 blue herbs. You get 4 12-gauge shells. You get 4 blue herbs, a white vial and 2 cloth fragments. You get 6 9mm bullets, a Luger pistol, and a pilot jacket. You get 6 silver shillings, a bear trap, and a suede jacket. You get 7 tinder boxes, a quill, and a blue vial. You get a blue vial and 2 cloth fragments. You get a blue vial. You get a cameo. You get a chalk, a soul stone, and a collared blouse. You get a dried meat, a moldy bread, and 3 carrots. You get a knife, a meat pea, linen vest, and a lucky coin. You get a light blue vial, a scalpel, and a silk vest. You get a long sword and an eagle crest shield. You get a pipe and opium powder. You get a pipe wrench, sturdy overalls, and a booby trap. You get a rifle .303 MKI, 5.303 ammo, and an army jumpsuit. You get a rusty pipe, a meat pie, cashmere suit, and an egg. You get a short bow and 5 arrows. You get a soul stone, yellow mage robes, and a beheaded wizard. You get a soul stone. You get a wine vial. You get a wine vial, a bottle of whiskey, and an ale. You get Alchemilia Vol. 1. You also get a iron cuirass and arm guards. You also get a plate mail and leg guards. You get an army uniform, a Luger pistol and 10 9mm bullets. You get an iron mace and a wooden buckler. You get an iron spear. You get cloth fragment and 2 condensed blues. You get foldable wheelchair. You get recipes of the 15th century. You get rotten meat. You get skin Bible. God of fear and hunger. You get skin Bible. Grogoroth. You get skin Bible. Rur. You get skin Bible. Vinushka. You get small thing. You get skin Bible. Grogoroth. You get skin Bible. Rur. You get skin Bible. Vinushka. You get small things amulet. You get sturdy overalls and a booby trap. You get the Alchemilia Vol. 1. Mix of red and blue herbs and a green herb. You get the lion brass key. You get the sewer keys. You get the skin Bible. Vinushka. You got 12 gauge trench gun. You got 12 gauge trench gun and 3 12 gauge shells. You got 4 cloth fragments and 2 blue vials. You got 99 eyes mask. You got a cloth fragment. You got a cursed bone shears. You got a cursed claymore. You got a cursed dagger. You got a cursed iron mace. You got a cursed iron spear. You got a cursed long sword. You got a cursed meat cleaver. You got a cursed morning star. You got a cursed ritual spear. You got a cursed shark teeth. You got a cursed short bow. You got a cursed short sword. You got a cursed war scythe. You got a cursed short bow. You got a lucky coin. You got a cursed war scythe. You got a lucky coin. You got a Luger pistol and 6 9mm bullets. You got a molded doll. You got heroin and withdrawal symptoms. You got a molded doll. You got heroin and withdrawal symptoms. You got Luger pistol and 10 9mm bullets. You got pickup 2 legs. You got rifle .303 MKI and 4.303 ammo. You got skin Bible. Grogoroth. You got skin Bible. Rare. You got skin Bible. Sylvian. You got the Alchemilia Vol. 2. You got the Alchemilia Vol. 3. You got the Alchemilia Vol. 1. You got the Bobby Wondering. He seems to be lost in his thoughts. You got the Book of Enlightenment. You got the books Alchemilia Vol. 1 and Vol. 2. You got the Chak just barely. You got the Book of Enlightenment. You got the Chak just barely. You got the Galian Greatsword just barely. You got the recipes of the 15th century Vol. 1 and 2. You got the Shield of the Four. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of Al-Mur. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of God of Fear and Hunger. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of Grogoroth. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of Rare. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of Sylvian. You got the Skin Bible. Chapter of Vinushka. You got the Yigajetsu amulet just barely. You got to a set of old ruins, or they looked more like a measly pile of rubble now. If it wasn't for the dreadful aura emanating from deep within, you couldn't tell there was anything remarkable about this place whatsoever. You got to search through his office and found several letters from Riela. Apparently the two had been in a letter correspondence long after Riela had graduated. You graduated, started your own research in botanism, while also working at the biggest greenhouse in Bremen. What should have been a brand new start in life felt more like you falling into place to gather moss, living your life through your sister's amazing tales. You grew up at the churchyard in the city of Prehevel. You started your religious studies at a fairly young age. You grounded the iron spear on the ground and let the creature's own weight do the work for you. The crow came at you with such force that the spear impaled its abdomen without slowing it down the slightest. You had a balanced childhood in the city of Oldegard with both of your parents always present. Your father taught you in the art of war, the very first step, was to choose your weapon. You had a knack for mechanics and electronics, so ultimately it came down to those two lines of studies. You had a massive orgasm and passed out. You had a suspicion that your father had something to do with this. He had always been too obsessed with the blood magic, and you had learned that there were too many rites that demanded the blood of your loved ones to work. You had already matured to adulthood, but because of your expertise in engineering, you had a massive orgasm and passed out. You had a suspicion that your father had something to do with this. He had always been too obsessed with the blood magic, and you had learned that there were too many rites that demanded the blood of your loved ones to work. You had already matured to adulthood, but because of your expertise in engineering, your role on the home front was more important than what you could have achieved on the battlefield. You had been extorted of your measly salaries too many times. You didn't want to do the same to anyone. You had been hoping for a chance to work on something bigger, and this opportunity seemed to be just that. You had considered yourself as successfully dead inside, not swayed by emotions, but it took a lot of effort to convince yourself that you wouldn't miss your family. You still obviously had weaknesses to weed out. You had gathered enough knowledge and skills on your travels to rival what the local temples promoted. You had grown into your manhood and aboarded the ship. After months of sailing, the sea saw no end and the crew was struggling for their life. Some laid weak under the deck while some embraced the cold, dark sea. You had learned that the nature took care of you no matter where you went. You didn't have limitations of human body anymore. You had left your home because you didn't want to die fighting someone else's war. So why would you waste your life serving someone else in turn? You had to act fast before the police would catch up on you. What did you take with you before leaving the city? You had to choose at a very young age to either become a pickpocket, a burglar, or try to struggle and lead an honest life. You had to fight through a mob of Ricardo's goons. Somehow you made it out from the back door with only minor injuries and ran away as fast as you could. You had trouble fitting in with regular people who were unaware of the greater scheme of things. But from the people that inhabited the Red Lights district, you found kindred spirits. You had trouble getting acquainted with other students, but your sister, on the other hand, was already leading the student council and was even getting very familiar with one of the university professors. You harvest brain flower stigma. You harvest heart flower stigma. You harvested a heart. You harvested a kidney. You harvested a liver. You harvested a thymus. You harvested an eye. You harvested parathyroid glands. You hated this life. Your parents would be more concerned on the matters of religion than you. To make it worse, they even tried to pass on the healing gift of Sylvian to you. You have severed heads in your possession, of which are non-contestant heads. Do you want to sacrifice them all? You have severed heads in your possession. Do you want to sacrifice them all? You have silver coins. What do you want to trade them for? You have already acquired everything from your family line. You have already learned everything Grogoroth has to offer at the moment. You have become a materialization of the love you two shared, intertwined forever. What will you call yourself from now on? You have no idea what could have caused such mutation and growth. You have no idea what he is doing here, though. You have no idea what you're looking at. Whatever it is pulsating erratically. You have no idea what you're looking at. Whatever it is pulsating steadily. You have no idea what you're looking at. You have nothing worthy to offer to the new gods. You have seen the Grand Gate with its maddening murals and spirals, patterns beyond understanding. You have seen the twin towers that rise next to a black night sky. Those macabre obelisks telling tales of some older, more cruel age. You have trouble saying anything to the beast because of the overwhelming stench the creature emits. You headed back to the foyer. You headed down. You headed straight to the dark corridor the beast had busted through before. You headed to the City of the Sun, Amun, to educate yourself on spiritualism and religion. You were no sloth physically, but you always considered your intellect your true forte. You hear faint sounds coming from a hole in the dirt. You hear faint sounds coming from the crack on the wall. You hear faint sounds from the vermin. You hear heavy breathing through your sleep. You hear moaning and heavy footsteps close by. You hear someone else approach the well. You hear someone walk on the ground level. You hear the heavy footsteps of that wicked cat. He knows what you've done, in pre-heval and before. The cat is circling around you in the darkness. Just beyond your line of sight, you heard an ear-piercing screech. It sounded like a cell door was just forced open. Steady scraping sounds closed in on you as you felt a terrifying presence advance in the dark. You heard Dahlia yell for you tirelessly. Even after all these hours, you decided to give yourself in and reveal your location. You were still just a child after all. What were you going to do instead? You heard distant chains rattle by the chasm. You heard the creature charge through the nearby torture chamber, knocking over the Iron Maidens and crashing through the tables and chairs in pursuit of you. You heard the creature trash the nearby torture chamber. He was right on your heels. You couldn't see him in the darkness, but you could sense his intense hatred homing in on you. You hid behind the desk and tried to get a decent vantage point. As the scraping noises grew louder and louder, you hope that it is only your mind that is crumbling here. You wish Elise has her rest now. You hope that whatever you find from this small town could give at least some closure to your sorrow. You interrupt a discussion. Your intimidation tactics don't seem to work on the heartless one. You investigated where the professor had gone after getting fired from the university, only to find out that he had been executed several months prior. He too had been accused of treason and had been sentenced to be hanged in the middle of a battlefield. You joined the motley crew of adventurers Azif had managed to put together and traveled through war-torn Europa. Most of the crew quit halfway to London because of how difficult it was to cross borders during those chaotic times. You jumped back while chanting the spell. You lifted your hand and targeted the creature's chest. You focused all your pent-up rage on that very spot. You dug deep to all the great wrongs done to you in your short life. You just had these in your dream. Was the dream an omen? You just managed to anger Samarie with your intimidation efforts. You just managed to get her furious with your persuasion. Although maybe her reckless swings are now easier to evade, you keep on going for now. You kept walking. The ground was pretty even, and in general the terrain was fairly easily traversable. You kicked the drawer a couple of times and managed to force it open. You knew it. You knew you didn't have much time before he would be sentenced to death, so you had to act fast. You learn bloodlust. You learn dash. You learn devour. You learn engrave. You learn escape. Plan. You learn executioner. You learn gunslinger. You learn lockpicking. You learn marksmanship. You learn necromancy. You learn necromancy. You learn pyromancy trick. You learn steal. You learned adrenaline rush. You learned advanced botanism. You learn necromancy. You learn necromancy. You learn pyromancy trick. You learn steal. You learned adrenaline rush. You learned advanced botanism. You learned analyze. You learned bare-fisted proficiency. You learned bob and weave. You learned defense stance. You learned escape plan. You learned fast stance. You learned good manners, grew to appreciate fine arts and other perks that high-class living brought along. You learned hurting. You learned killing intent. You learned La Danse Macabre, the traditional dance of the yellow mages that channels otherworldly powers close to you. You learned lockpicking. You learned loving whispers, and your affinity with Sylvian grew. You learned medicinal, and the mandatory skill of organ harvest that comes along with it. You learned meditation. You learned of a certain man who was prophetess to begin a new era for mankind. A man meant for greatness. But why would you need to share the spotlight of the gods with any mortal man? You learned perfect God. You learned persuade. You learned pyromancy trick. You learned short circuit. You learned steal. You learned that the man has since been imprisoned in the kingdom of Rondon's dungeons. In the notorious dungeons of fear hunger, you learned toxicology. You learned trapcraft. You learned undergrowth awareness. You learned weapon craft. You learned wrench toss. You light the torch. You liked what you heard and decided to join the wandering group. What did you specialize in? You look away as he injects the heroin. You looked up the rope. The climb was long. You didn't want to go back and forth many times, so you decided to search the cavern. You look away as he injects the heroin. You looked up the rope. The climb was long. You didn't want to go back and forth many times, so you decided to search the caverns first before heading back. You lose your mind. You lost the game of hangman. The figure met its fate on the hanging tree. You lost the game of hangman. You love this kind of stuff. Historical comedy is your favorite genre outside plain comedy. You made an idol of yourself. You made the janitor furious and reckless. You make no sense of skeleton. Skeletons truly are full of mystery and malice. You managed to buy 59mm bullets and a fencing gambeson. You managed to buy Luger pistol, 59mm bullets, and a fencing gambeson. You managed to dodge the swing and thrust the sword through the creature's side, puncturing its ribs. You managed to find 212-gauge shells. You managed to find 2 blue vials and a cloth fragment. You managed to find 2 dried meats and a moldy bread. You managed to find 2 green herbs, 2 blue herbs, 2 lavenders and a red herb. You managed to find 2 pouches of tobacco and a condensed lavender. You managed to find 3.303 ammo. You managed to find 49mm bullets. You managed to find 4 bolts, 2 duct tape, 2 pressure plates, and 3 scrap metal. You managed to find a bottle of beer and you managed to find 2 green herbs. You managed to find 2 12-gauge shells. You managed to find 2 blue vials and a cloth fragment. You managed to find 2 dried meats and a moldy bread. You managed to find 2 green herbs, 2 blue herbs, 2 lavenders and a red herb. You managed to find 2 pouches of tobacco and a condensed lavender. You managed to find 3.303 ammo. You managed to find 49mm bullets. You managed to find 4 bolts, 2 duct tape, 2 pressure plates, and 3 scrap metal. You managed to find a bottle of beer and a bottle of vodka. You managed to find the Alchemilia Vol. .1. You managed to hit one of the officers, but you only managed to shoot his thigh. In return, he answered your fire with fire and shot you in the abdomen. You fell down immediately. The pain was excruciating. You managed to increase your defense with a couple of levels in the end. You managed to increase your strength with a couple of levels in the end. You managed to infuriate Dysmorphia with your intimidation efforts. You managed to infuriate Dysmorphia with your persuasion efforts. You managed to infuriate Perkella. You managed to intimidate Henrik. His attack is wavering despite putting on a strong face. You managed to push the creature back just barely and escaped with only a minor injury. You managed to shake Karen's beliefs. Your mother had different plans for you. She didn't want you to go down the path that would befall to every firstborn son in church. You needed proof before you could open your mouth. You had witnessed the rumors about the new gods and Kaiser in real life. You knew they were real. You never fully understood what happened to her, but she followed you every step of the way since you two left that wicked city. You never heard of Dahlia again, but apparently she had indeed kidnapped you and you were living off of ransom money your new stepfather had barely been able to put together. Your sixth sense seemed to be working as intended. You never questioned it before, but how come some of the nuns used that perfume in the first place? You never spoke of you never heard of Dahlia again, but apparently she had indeed kidnapped you and you were living off of ransom money your new stepfather had barely been able to put together. Your sixth sense seemed to be working as intended. You never questioned it before, but how come some of the nuns used that perfume in the first place? You never spoke of your experiences. Even if those events ate you up every night as you laid down to sleep, you notice a black-haired girl spying on you. You notice slow and steady breathing. The hulking creature is clearly still alive. It doesn't seem to react to your investigations, so it must be unconscious at the very least. You notice that Marina is not in the party anymore. She must have wandered off to somewhere, or what else could it be? You notice that Marina is not in the party anymore. You notice the yellow mage ahead. You noticed a rope tied on the platform. On the other end of the rope, you saw a corpse belonging to the archaeological expedition. This person had apparently hanged himself. The horrors of the dungeons must have been too much for him. You noticed an unconscious army officer on the ground. You picked up his pistol in a hurry, pointed the gun at the opposing forces and shot. You obtained the darkness and red virtue. You once made a promise to yourself that you'd never lay a finger on firearms ever again. You only managed to aggravate the creature with your insults and intimidation. You open the passages of Mahabharata. The pages start telling you stories of past ages. You opened the chest and found 2 bear traps. You overhear a discussion. You packed your bags and set out. You party members disappeared somewhere. You were left alone while you were sleeping. Your persuasion tactics don't seem to work on the heartless one. You pet its head. Absolutely no reaction. Its glassy eyes stare right through you. You pick up a 12-gauge trench gun and 4 12-gauge shells. You pick up a blue herb. You pick up a bottle of vodka and 5 blue vials. You pick up a dark blue root. You pick up an eye of Sylvian. You pick up a fly amanita. You pick up a golden chanterelle. You pick up a green herb. You pick up a Luger pistol and 49mm bullets. You pick up a penny bun. You pick up a poison hemlock. You pick up a red herb. You pick up a Luger pistol and 49mm bullets. You pick up a penny bun. You pick up a poison hemlock. You pick up a red herb. You pick up a rifle .303 MKI and 3.303 ammo. You pick up a rifle .303 MKI. You pick up a small rock and throw it in. You pick up an arm. You pick up both of Rancid's Sergal spears. You pick up lavender. You pick up nettle. You pick up Olivia's head. You pick up Rancid's Sergal spear. You pick up the God Manifesto. You pick up the heart-shaped lock. You pick up the mauler. You pick up the pine cone from the tree. You get a pinecone pig. You pick up the sewer winch. You pick up the unused gasoline canister. You pick up wild dagger. You picked up the prison keys. You picked up the Sergal spear from the severed hand of the Sergal. You planted a seed of doubt into the soldier's mind. His aggression seems to waver. You politely declined the offer. You politely declined. But at this point there was no turning back. Ricardo reminded that he got your sister back at his flat, and she'd feel it in her skin if you didn't comply. You poured both gasoline canisters. You pressed through the crack. You proved out to have great talent as an occultist, and slowly even the Holy City of Vatican and their Ministry of Darkness heard about your feats. You pull the sword and get black steel. You pulled the corpse up. You put the offering on the center of the circle. You put your creativity to test in the most harshest of environments. You were born and soon abandoned in the capital of the Eastern Sanctuaries, Jataya. You quickly waltzed inside the kitchen and pressed again a corner where you thought you could stay hidden while still seeing what you were up against. You quietly left the temple area thinking that revenge doesn't solve anything. But in order to make sure you survive on your own, you took some precious books to secure your wealth. You quit at the Temple of Amun and decided to head east in pursuit of these yellow mages. You quit at the temple, thinking that you'd need to forge a path of your own. You had left your home because you didn't want to die fighting someone else's war. So why would you waste your time learning to worship someone else in turn? You ran across the bridge. The creature followed hot on your trail. The shaky bridge clattered under your feet. Just as you made it on the other side, the whole thing fell to pieces. You ran as fast as you could, creating distance to the malformed beast with each step. You couldn't see much in the darkness, but a door frame that had light shining through its cracks caught your attention. You ran away from the crime scene. The problem was that now both the family and the law enforcement of the city were after you. You reach inside. You realize something now, that you looked the ravine from the other side. You receive soulstone shards. You receive a soulstone shard. You recognize the person. You recognize the voice. It is Tanaka Thassa, salaryman from the train. You recognize this man. You recognize yourself from the TV screen. Yet you don't ever remember doing a broadcast like this in your life. You remember blood sacrifice. You remember bloodlust. You remember counter. You remember dash. You remember fast attack. You remember fast stance. You remember greater blood magic. You remember how in exchange for a plate of your father, the animals would teach you their own tricks of trade for survival. You remember how the voice would teach you skills to help you one day extract revenge from the wrongdoings of your uprising. You remember marksmanship. You remember moths. Blue noctuid moths to be precise. That is your first memory as a child. You and your twin sister sitting in the backyard, illuminated by the cold blue hue of the moon. You remember steel. You remember the wicked rituals your ancestors took part in. The crude old-fashioned witchcraft that lacked the finesse of its modern counterpart. You remember your ancestors from a long line of noble knights from the kingdom of Rondon. You remember your ancestors leading a simple, yet violent life of mercenaries. You remember your ancestors living in the frozen wastelands of Oldegard. You remember, after generations of these black arts, your ancestors finally managed to summon a wretched little evil. You remember freezing winters, where the weather and gods would measure the resiliency of your people. Only the strongest would see the sun rising again in the spring. You remember his feeble arms trying to wrestle you down, but he proved to be the weaker of the two of you. You remember how for a price of your beloved ones you could attain greater knowledge. You agreed, of course, being the greedy bastard you were. You remember how from a very early age, every single of your ancestors had to partake the training to become a holy knight of Alomurth. You remember how from every generation, only the eldest child would be chosen to continue the family name. You remember how neither of you had ate a thing in past 2 weeks, how the hunger would drive even the most good-hearted man insane. You remember how riches and wealth dictated your masters, all while still holding a grasp at freedom by traveling across the known continents. You remember how the cruelty knew no end. Every day you would be pitted against beasts from exotic locations. You remember how the priests, your caretakers, would use punishing and cruel ways to embed the moral codes and ways of the knighthood. You remember how your ancestors would desperately try to contact even the most minor demons in their attempts to gain more knowledge of the other side. You remember how your father finally made his move during the full moon, but he was already so weak from the hunger. You remember how your father would look at you from the dark corner of your small hut, the eyes of a starving man. You remember slowly sinking to the darkness within and hearing a voice. You remember the feast you would have the next day. There was so much meat on the open fire that it could feed the animals of the surrounding forests as well. You remember the wolf deity teaching you his greatest secret. You remember, while murdering cold blood your victims on a highway heist, you had a greeting with the wolf deity of northern parts. You reported the man to the officials of Oldegard. Apparently he had just recently traveled from the Eastern Union to Oldegard and was suspected for espionage. You returned to Abyssonia, to your homeland. You returned to
you